Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome in to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Thursday, March 4th. We're cruising right along here. We're almost a handful of days into spring training action. Now, a lot of the big names out there have yet to make their debut. There's been a couple of starting pitchers that have gone one or two innings, but a lot of the big position players just starting to get their first couple of innings, first couple of games at bats. A lot of guys still working on the side fields, getting extra reps in, like here in Philadelphia. Bryce Harper has yet to see the lineup in game action, but across the board, some guys are out there playing, finding their footing, starting to get underway. But I wanted to wait until, Monday's episode when I really dive into kind of early season storylines, what's taking place across Major League Baseball, and getting into all of that particular action. With having said that, I think we got a great show for you here today. We got a lot to talk about. There's been a new report, additional information released regarding the Mickey Callaway sexual allegation suspension that he's currently facing with the Los Angeles Angels. There's also been a minor league update out there that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about spring training position battles that are currently taking place out there, the biggest battles, I think, to watch for the next month. And then we're going to wrap things up talking about the Rookie of the Year. I'm going to give you guys one guy per team out there who I think could have a shot and may be the best rookie for each team, if not up for the Rookie of the Year award. But unfortunately, here at the top of the show, we're going to once again kind of start off on a somber mood. Seems like every episode I talk to you guys, there's something bad happening across Major League Baseball, and they just can't seem to get out of their own way. I mean, this has been a couple of years now regarding negative publicity during the offseason, dating all the way back to the Astros cheating scandal of 2018. Then we dealt with the Red Sox scandal the following year. We've had managers, and now recently the Seattle president conversation that was recently recorded and released. And now, once again, more information coming out about Mickey Callaway, and more specifically his time with the Cleveland Indians, because theathletic.com recently ran an article or had a report out there that more women are coming out against Mickey Callaway, saying that he made them feel uncomfortable by sending inappropriate messages or photos or making unwanted advances. MLB security has been contacted. The Indians were contacted about this information. And this is where things get a little bit tricky, but as you dive into the details, a lot of this is regarding an affair that Mickey Callaway and a married woman had from the years of 2015 to 2017. And this is, there was an angry husband involved with this entire report, basically saying that the husband reached out to fan services with the Indians to let them know that Callaway had sent, quote, pornographic material to his wife in unsolicited photos and at least one video. And then the Indians, the people involved with the organization, basically were quoted as saying that they eventually took the content of this information and related to club president Chris Antonetti, general manager Mike Chernoff, and manager Terry Francona. And when these allegations initially surfaced, they went to Callaway to confront him and discuss with him what was going on. And Callaway at that point admitted to the relationship with the woman. And this relationship was consensual in nature. So this is where things become a bit murky when getting to the actual details and why there's an investigation going on. Because if they had a consensual relationship, it still doesn't mean that you are able to send unsolicited photos or videos. But it certainly leads to a higher probability that this is going to take place if you're in a relationship with a partner out there. And the more you read the details, the more it's kind of fascinating. But really where the print is and where the problem lies is Antonetti had made a declaration or spoke publicly on the fact that he said, quote, "There had never been any complaints against Mickey in his time with us, either to me or our human resource department or our leaders." And this prompted a pretty big response from a lot of people involved with this investigation. One former Indians employee was quoted as saying, "Those comments hit me the wrong way. I know that's the way Chris has to do it and run things, but the amount of people in that organization who know all about this stuff, I don't know how he can then turn around, say these things, and face his staff." End quote. So it's a pretty detailed description of what's going on. Terry Francona's son was also involved in this report. He posted on Twitter and in social media about how he was disappointed in his dad. He confronted his dad. He said that they don't have a great relationship, but he wanted to know why they didn't say anything when the Mets hired Callaway. He said his father lied to him. He didn't know. Additionally, he just doesn't understand the behavior that was involved and the situation and its entirety. So there's a lot of details out there. Head to The Athletic, check it out online. But it's just kind of fascinating to see more and more of this come out. And really the big picture and the hard part is that the Indians did come out and say they had no idea, when it clearly seems like multiple Indian staffers had been contacted and they were made aware of what was taking place. It's also been released that the husband emailed the New York Mets in 2018 when he was hired by the Mets to let them know about all this going on. Now, we've discussed in detail what's going on in New York, how they've had multiple instances of this taking place, and they wish they knew before they hired him. And most recently with the GM who was hired and let go in a month, that they have to improve their background search and their check into, people's history and things like that. So there's just a ton of people, upwards of 20-plus women who have come out against Callaway and saying that this is the worst-kept secret in baseball. I mean, multiple people have discussed about how his nickname throughout the organization, and I'll use a PC term here, but is Genitalia Pick Mick. And you guys can put that together based on the rhyme scheme there, what ultimately they were using. But if there's a guy who's known as that particular nickname, I mean, it's pretty understood what is happening. So Mickey, basically, the Indians went back to the husband and said, Mickey wants all this to go away. What do we need to do? What's going on? So it's just another black eye across Major League Baseball, and with spring training, trying to, have some positive outlook on baseball. They're going to play a full season. They're back, and just more and more reports coming out that I just can't believe this happens. I mean, how does Callaway get hired by the Angels in 2020? How are they not aware of any of these allegations in the past? And, Joe Madden was asked about it, but he can't really say anything due to the investigation going on. And the investigation is currently being run by Major League Baseball and not the Angels, the Indians, the Mets. No particular team is doing the investigation. It's actually being run by the league itself. So, reports like this are pretty damning when they get out to the public. It basically gives you public reaction, public backlash, and of course, the state of California says an employee cannot be terminated strictly on allegations. This is why Callaway has still only been suspended at this point and has not been fired or released or let go or resigned. And, he continues to say that he's done nothing wrong during his entire time, his career. Everything he's engaged in has been consensual, but it still doesn't mean you can send pictures. And this is where, yes, if they had a consensual relationship, I mean, obviously morals are involved, but there's nothing illegal or nothing wrong because it was consensual and outside of the workplace, according to the Indians. So it didn't affect the job, didn't affect work, but it doesn't mean you can send unsolicited pictures or videos. And I mean, all of it's wrong, but this is where the investigation has to figure out the difference between whether it's illegal or immoral or, kind of that fine line of, hey, it was consensual, but, these pictures were not. And that relationship was, but the communication was not. So, an angry husband getting involved, I certainly can see how somebody could feel that way, learning about a marital affair and kind of going after things and, emotions get involved and things like that. So Major League Baseball continues to investigate, continues to run its course, but I would just implore everybody out there to read the article on The Athletic, kind of do your own research, figure it out, and give your response accordingly. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, keep you guys up to date, because, again, this is a baseball show. I do want to talk about things on the field, but I got to talk about everything involved with the sport. And, when you go to Google and you type in baseball or Major League Baseball, this article about Mickey Callaway's coming right up, and I feel it is my duty to discuss it with you guys out there. Whether, you agree with all my takes or disagree, we're certainly not going to agree on everything. That's the beauty of America, the fact that we can have differing opinions and we all don't have to think the same and we can have some individualism out there. But, certainly wanted to discuss it and bring it up with you guys. But transitioning now into kind of another, negative connotation for Major League Baseball. There was a recent interview being done about Albert Pujols that came out that was a bit of concerning or very interesting to say the least. There was a former MLB executive, former Marlins executive, David Sampson, who served as Marlins president from 2002 until 2017. He was doing an interview on the Dan Le Batard show when he had a couple of thoughts around Albert Pujols' age and ultimately how he doesn't think, and nobody within baseball thinks, Albert Pujols is actually only 41 years old. He said in the interview, quote, "There is not one person in baseball, not one executive who believes Albert Pujols is the age that he says he is. The amount of fraud that was going on in the Dominican back in the day, the changing of names, the changing of birthdays, it would blow your mind," end quote. And Sampson basically said when we were trying to sign him with the Marlins in 2011, when ultimately he was moving on from St. Louis and signed with the Angels at that point, we knew when we did the calculations that we didn't care about 2019, 20, or 21. It was so far in the future, it didn't matter. We knew he'd be unproductive. We knew that he was not the age that he said he was, and we had all the information, end quote. So basically saying, hey, they know, and this has happened more than once when it comes to international baseball, maybe not as much here recently, but certainly in the past, and this isn't the only example that is out there across Major League Baseball. I mean, another example is former pitcher Wandy Rodriguez. Rodriguez was 19 at the time during 1999 when he was signed out of the Dominican. He was only throwing the mid-80s, which is, not very impressive for somebody at the age of 19 coming out of Dominican. But apparently Rodriguez found a way to boost his resume. He told scouts that he was 17, but he also gave them a completely different name. He actually, quote, borrowed the identity of his friend, Jose De Jesus Ortiz, who was 2 years younger than Rodriguez. So Rodriguez, instead of 19-year-old, which he was, said he was 17, and thus a mid-80s fastball at 17 certainly looks a lot more attractive to scouts in the area. Rodriguez came out years later and admitted his true identity and his age to the organization once he was signed. He still went on to pitch in the major leagues for over 10 years, so was still very successful. But ultimately, again, the opportunity to be signed, a lot of fraud taking place in the DR. Another example, according to ESPN, back in the day, 1993 was former shortstop Miguel Tejada. And Tejada also lied about being 17 when he was 19 to get his contract with the Oakland A's. And, back then, 20, 25 years ago, there wasn't as much research or background that you could do into somebody who was international, because you could really only go off of references locally. A lot of technology wasn't involved, so it was much more difficult to kind of confirm or deny what was taking place. But, looking at Albert Pujols and everybody knowing he's not going to be 41, it certainly reflects his career. I have his baseball reference page up here, and just strictly looking at the difference between St. Louis and L.A., he spent 11 years in St. Louis, where he hit 445 home runs, had 1,329 RBIs for a career 328 batting average. Now, once again, this was from age 21 until age 31, according to everything we know now. But his time in L.A., in 9 years, this will be his 10th year, but he's only hit 217 home runs for a 257 average with 771 RBIs. He's only been an all-star one time. He's finished as high as 17th in MVP voting. That's the highest he's been. He's done that twice after winning the award 3 times in St. Louis and finishing second 4 additional times. So 3 awards, 4 runner-ups, and the highest he's been is 17 since he's been to L.A. So just a fascinating career, because if he was 32 when he signed that contract in L.A., basically Sampson is saying, no, he was probably 34, 35, and the guy may actually be 44 or 43 this year when it comes to his actual age. So just a fascinating report, a fascinating interview done on the Le Batard Show. And again, just an overall, kind of interesting take on international players that hopefully we've been able to clear up and basically figure out now that we're in the year 2021 here. So unfortunately, like I said, a somber segment here coming into the GSMC Baseball Podcast, but I got to give you guys the news. I got to give you what's going on, and I implore you guys to do a bit further research and, look at things yourselves before making any big conclusions. But that'll do it here for the first segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll step aside here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little minor league baseball. There's been some updates, some changes, so you guys are going to want to hear these. Stick around.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, and thanks again for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. If you guys haven't checked us out on social media, please do yourself a favor. Head over to Twitter, head over to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Check out GSMC Baseball, as well as the podcast network. Multiple pages on multiple platforms, but now that we are getting back into season here, the activity on the Twitter is going to pick up. A lot of, videos out there from spring training games, a lot of new information being shared, and we certainly want to keep everybody up to date in a social media-driven world where information is simultaneously released. We're going to get you guys everything you need to know. So give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, and you're going to get all the information you guys need here coming up for the baseball season. But here in segment number 2, like I said, I want to talk about minor league baseball. There have been some updates as well as some pending decisions that need to be made here across the sport. Most recently, with Major League Baseball now taking over operations of the minor leagues, it has been released that the AAA season is going to be delayed about a month here moving forward. Now, of course, baseball wanted to do this with the Major League season, but they need the Players Association and the players to sign off on this big of an agreement or change, and the players were unwilling to do this because, like I said on past episodes, this would allow Rob Manfred too much power to be able to manipulate the schedule, changes, pauses, if there were coronavirus outbreaks. There were just too many variables and extremes that the players felt could be taken advantage of in the commissioner's office to agree to this, but because baseball runs the minor league operations, they do not need the players to sign off on these types of changes. They're just able to implement whatever they'd like at this certain level. And it has come out that AAA will be pushed back a month until the beginning of May. This is now going to align with the same start dates as the AA and both high A and low A schedules. They are targeting the first week of May to start these seasons, and there's a couple of reasons on why they are doing this. Because one of them is health and safety of the players, or the main reason is health and safety of the players, and then kind of subplots below that, of course, go into the coronavirus, the pandemic, but one of the big reasons is that minor league level players, when they travel for games, actually fly commercial. So they fly United, Delta on airplanes with me and you. They don't have private jets that go to private runways, private airports, in and out. So they're not able to basically control as much as the environment as they are at the big league level. When it comes to the safety of players, they're going to be flying with common individuals, common folk, masks, no mask. Again, everybody's supposed to wear a mask on the plane, but we all read the articles, see the news, know what's going on when it comes to that style of agreement or arrangement. So they feel that giving it another month is going to improve the health and safety. And this also correlates with the vaccine distribution that is continuing to be ramped up. You know, we are still in the early stages as a country. Certain groups are eligible, certain groups are not eligible yet. And due to kind of the protocol where it's minor leagues, typically younger guys, 35 and under, even age 20, 25, they're in good health. They don't have any underlying health conditions. So a lot of these players don't qualify yet for these vaccines. But baseball has come out and said with the new emergency approval of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the FDA recently cleared that, basically saying that they're going to be rolling out distribution. They have the supply for everyone here in America, so they want to continue to see if that will roll out over the next 60 days. And the vaccine, as well as the decline in cases, they think another month will allow them a bit more wiggle room to potentially have fans in the stands at the minor league level, to be able to make money and just benefit the overall product on the field as well. But because of this, the AAA season is now going to run into the month of September. So we may see less September call-ups when it comes to this year. Now, typically it went from 25 to 40 for the roster. There's been some conversation whether or not that is going to be the same again. Last year they cut it down because less individuals in the dugout meant less exposure, less safety concerns, and depending again on where we are as a country with the cases, the virus, they may make an adjustment mid-season once again and leave all the gentlemen down there in AAA. But for the month of April, this is where the outside the box thinking is they are still going to have developmental and alternate sites being used like they had in 2020. And these development sites are going to be close to the big league parks. And these are the individuals, same as last year, who are very close to the big league level because they don't want guys in the clubhouse, in the locker room, in the facilities. They'd rather have them at the alternate developmental sites, but they also want them close enough and being tested often enough to where if somebody goes down with an injury or, forbid there's an outbreak out there, that individuals coming from these sites don't have to quarantine for 7 days or a week from coming out of state, depending on state-to-state restrictions and regulations and everything that's happening there. So the AAA guys aren't going to be playing games in April, but they're still going to be at the developmental and alternate sites, basically playing inter-squad matchups for the entirety of the month. Now, they're still finalizing the amount of individuals that will be allowed at these sites. A couple executives out there have said they think it's going to be anywhere from 20 to 25 players because they do need to continue to get ready. They need to get ready for their minor league season as well as availability for the pros. So there's still a lot of fluctuation, a lot of changes being had out there as we're creeping towards the regular season. And at the major league level, they've been able to figure out most of these details and the changes and what they have going on, kind of going on as usual, as if it was 2018, 2019, business as usual for this year. But at the minor league level, they're still finding their way kind of day to day, making adjustments. And I feel like this isn't going to be the last time we hear of changes or alternations being made to the minor league schedule. And speaking of changes or alterations, there is a decision that has yet to be made that is affecting a lot of these big league clubs. Like in the NFL, they're trying to figure out where the salary cap is going to come in after coming to an agreement on the floor, but nobody knows where that exact number is, so executives haven't figured out how much money they have to spend. Well, in baseball, what they're trying to determine is minor league options for players. And if you don't know what minor league options are, essentially a quick definition is once a player is added to the 40-man roster, they have 3, quote, option years that they can be used. And once again, these are years and not transactions. But if you're added to the 40-man roster during the first 5 years of your full service time, and that full service time is going to come back here in a minute or two, but during your full service time, you can be, quote, optioned to the minor leagues or basically sent down to the minors 3 years out of those 5. Now, once you are optioned, you can be brought up to the majors, sent back down to the minors as many times as the team deems necessary during those years. Now, of course, when you're sent down, you have to stay down for 10 days, but you can be brought back up on the 11th day, pitch, sent back down. Brought back up on the 11th day, sent back down. You can do this for the 3 years to which you are being optioned. The question has become, does 2020 count as a full service year for players who did not play at the major league level? And the tricky part is because full service years meant 90-plus days. So 90 days qualified as a full service year previously for baseball. Now, if you think back to 2020, they only played 60 games, and the service time was actually only 67 days. So the amount of days did not reach the baseline for 90 full days. So does it count as a season? Does it count for somebody being optioned? As well as there wasn't a minor league season. So if you were sent to the developmental camp or the alternate sites, does this count as being optioned or, kind of where is that gray line? So Major League Baseball and the MLBPA didn't come to an agreement on this when they were trying to figure out the 2021 season because, of course, they were more worried about things happening at the big league level. But this decision is supposed to come at some point this month of March, and an arbitrator, a third-party arbitrator, is going to make this decision. Now, personally, I don't know where I stand on this. I mean, the full service time really doesn't bother me, the 67 to 90 days. Just the fact that they didn't have a minor league season, I'm not sure it should count as an option. I think the big league team should have the ability to option players who maybe they, quote, optioned last year. But again, it just didn't qualify because they didn't have the minor league season. So, there's a lot of players who have been optioned 3 times, quote unquote, if you do count last year, that would be out of options, which means if they don't make the big league team, they essentially have to get cut, and every other team has the ability to pick them up before they head to that minor league association with their current team. And this is a lot to do with rosters. They may send a guy down. There's politics involved with this. If player A and B are even in production and age and all of that stuff, player A is out of options and player B has an option left, player B is going to be sent to the minors so that club can maintain the rights to both of those individuals. And that's been done for years. Now, if they get a second option or another option for player A, then it becomes, okay, which one do we think will help us more? Because if A isn't going to be 20% better than B, we'll keep B. But if A is out of options and B has options, we're going to send B down to the minors. So it'll be fascinating to see ultimately where that decision comes. Players rarely can be granted a 4th-year option. This has a lot to do with injuries. Again, if a player gets injured multiple years and they don't reach that full 90 days, they could get a 4th option as a big league club. And basically that's what they're saying. Hey, just treat it as an injury-filled year. Give us that 4th option. which allows teams, especially in spring training, when they're trying to figure out their roster, hey, can we cut this guy and still have him on our team and in our organization, or is he going to be let go and other teams are going to have the ability to pick him up? There's no clarity right now in that decision, which is making things hard for teams as they're trying to figure out their roster. So that's why the decision here is coming within the next couple of weeks and is a big one when it comes to roster decisions and making major league teams in 2021. So stay tuned out there on that one. It's going to be fascinating to see where this arbitrator comes, because I know it wasn't 90 days, but I don't think that's why. Ultimately, I think teams should get an additional option when it comes to these players. Like college football, the kids had the opportunity to come back and play one more year. Doesn't matter if they were a senior or whatever, but I think similarly in baseball, clubs should get a free pass here when it comes to last year and using options on current players. So stay tuned. We'll see ultimately where that decision comes out, and I'll keep you guys posted when it does. But wrapping up segment number 2 here, one last tidbit I wanted to discuss with you guys is that for Major League Baseball here, transitioning to the big leagues, in-game video is now going to be allowed again in 2021. So what does this mean exactly? Well, after the Astros scandal in 2018, where players went back into the clubhouse to look at video, potentially stole signs, potentially looked at patterns, were able to watch live video and translate it to the person hitting at that time. They did away with this, but they allowed basically iPads on the bench that use an app like Major League Baseball app that I'm sure a lot of you guys have out there, where they could look back at their at-bats from the previous half inning. You know, you get out, you go out, play the field, you come back in, and you want to look at your previous at-bat. Okay, how did the pitcher work me? Where were the pitches located? How did my swing look? Now, when you're watching these videos, they clip out the catcher's signals. They blur it out, so you can't be like, oh, okay, 2-1-3, he threw a breaking ball. Apparently they're going first sign. But you are able to kind of see, okay, he worked out, he worked in, up, down. My swing plane was here, my swing plane was there. And you can make an adjustment to your next at-bat. And it'll be fascinating to see how this could improve offense, because last year with no video allowed, the average across Major League Baseball, the batting average was 245. And this was the lowest since 1968 when it came in at 237. Strikeouts increased, hits decreased. It was really bad offensively for a lot of guys. And I mean, individuals, you know, who may have been affected by this, whether it was 60 games, no fans, whatever it is, but a lot of big names had down years last year. I mean, I talked to you guys about Yelich. He hit 326, 329, and then 205. In 2020, Nolan Arenado went from 315 to 350 or to 253. It's just, oh man, a lot of people went down. JD Martinez hit 304 down to 213. Marcus Semien only hit 223 after hitting 285. Cody Bellinger dropped 66 points on his average. Gleyber Torres lost 167 slugging as well as 35 average points. So a lot of big offensive guys who part of their routine is to go to the video, make adjustments, look at their swing, and go, okay, I dropped my back shoulder there, keep my shoulder tall. We're unable to do this in 2020. And it's something to keep an eye on. And of course, on the pitching side of things, those guys use it too. Okay, was this hitter diving over the plate? Or mechanically, was I pausing at the top of my leg kick? Was my shoulders and hips aligned? Did my front foot land early? Am I flying open? There's a lot of benefits to looking at video in game that were no longer available last year that are returning here in 2021. So I saw that released, thought it was kind of fascinating to look at some of the individuals who really struggled, and how part of their routine is going to the app, going to the video, and making adjustments on the fly there. So we'll see if those guys are able to bounce back here for 2021. But that'll do it here for segment number 2 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll step aside for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows, and when we come back, I'm going to talk to you guys about spring training battles, position battles, team battles currently taking place out there, what to watch for over the coming weeks. So stick around, everyone. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello again, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys haven't checked out other shows within the podcast network, I don't know what you're waiting for. I mean, there is such great content within the podcast network, whether it's health and fitness, sports, books, news, whatever it is. I mean, basketball's going to the All-Star game, hockey's coming up, football's getting into free agency. If you're into movies, television, music, whatever it is out there, there's a show for you outside of just this one, which is obviously fantastic, the baseball show. But check it out, guys. Type in GSMC into that magnifying glass wherever you're listening, and you'll pull up a bunch of different content for some great shows with some great hosts out there. But here in segment number 3, a bit of an update on spring training, some position battles to look at, as well as a couple of rules that were implemented that we've seen over the first weekend here. The first one being the mercy rule when it comes to pitchers. If a pitcher throws over 20 pitches in an inning, they are able to finish that inning basically calling off the dogs because they don't want to overwork pitchers. We saw this in Boston with Richards throwing 23 pitches. The bases were loaded, got one out, and it was like, hey, that's it. That's it for the half inning. And then he went back out there for the second inning. So you don't even have to take the pitcher out of the game. You just basically wave the right flag and say, okay, that's it. We're good. Moving on. And this was agreed to prior to the start of spring training, as well as the fact for the first 2 weeks of spring training, if prior to the game both managers agree they can play 5 innings, they could play 7 innings, or you can play the full 9. After the second week, I believe it's March 14th, you can still play 7 innings, but no longer play 5. Thank goodness we haven't seen any 5-inning games yet, but there have been a lot of 7-inning matchups. And this just comes back to player safety, keeping the pitcher's arms healthy, allowing guys to get at bats and not be overworked during each inning. So I wanted to bring that up because a couple of times I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? They're leaving the field here. There's only 2 outs. What's happening? Well, it's the mercy rule when it comes to pitch counts and the starting pitching not going deep into games. But talking about position battles here now, transferring into a lot of these to look at, there's quite a few. I mean, some are of more importance than others, but I wanted to bring up, I have 20 to 25 here written down that I think are worth watching. So whatever local market you're in, I believe your team's going to come up here, maybe even more than once, because a few teams have some position battles to watch. But in no particular order of interest, just kind of going down the list here, I have the Dodgers' 5th starter. This one is pretty much between Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, and Julio Urias. I don't know who's going to win it. I mean, I think Urias is probably the favorite. They may use all of these guys, and it could be one of those where they go Gonsolin 3 innings, May 3 innings, Urias 3 innings. But the Dodgers' 5th starter currently up for grabs when you get behind the top dogs there in the rotation and the depth that they have. A few of these guys may end up in the minor leagues. They may not even transition May or Gonsolin to the bullpen, keep them as the long reliever, or send one of them down to AAA to make sure they get innings. If an injury were to happen to one of the top guys, that they'd be ready to come out and throw 100 pitches when it comes to their start. Next, we have the White Sox designated hitter. It looks like this is between Zach Collins and Andrew Vaughn. Vaughn seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. He was a third overall pick back in 2019, so we don't have a lot to go on when it comes to minor league data, but a lot of executives within the White Sox organization are high on Vaughn and the value that he could bring, so it looks like it's going to be his job to lose when it comes to spring training here and the regular season and making that transition. Next up, we have the Padres closer, and they signed a ton of quality arms this offseason, so maybe they go closer by committee, but they have Keenwan Keenla, Mark Melancon, Emilio Pagan, Drew Pomeranz, and I'm not exactly sure who's going to win this one. I think Mark Melancon is probably the favorite just because of the success he's had, but Drew Pomeranz is somebody you could go with. Keela has been a closer for the Pirates, but Melancon's got, postseason experience in Atlanta. And it's just, man, 4 guys who have closing experience is certainly a good problem to have. And you'll see that from a lot of these position battles. There are a lot of big names involved where, it's not like who. It's all big-time guys like Pomeranz, Melancon, and Keela who have all closed at the big league level. They're all going to have a chance. And if somebody struggles during the regular season, you're certainly going to see other guys moving in there. Next, we have the Padres second baseman. You have Jake Cronenworth, who finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. You also have Hung Seung Kim coming over from Korea, who signed a big-time contract, and Jurickson Profar, who's a bench utility guy for them. So is it a platoon with Cronenworth and Kim? Cronenworth did fine last year, like I said, as a rookie, but you paid Kim a lot of money. Kim probably has a little bit more upside. He's better at base running, a bit more power, but, Cronenworth, he obviously wasn't overmatched, finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting, so it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do there and ultimately who the decision is. We have the Diamondbacks center fielder. You have Tim Locastro, Ketel Marte, and Dalton Varsho ultimately going at it here. So they also signed Asdrubal Cabrera to be there in Arizona. He's more of an infielder, but Varsho, an athletic guy, he could catch for him. He could play center. He could play all around. He did struggle a little bit last year in his first big league opportunities, but potentially that could have been due to the pandemic, due to a lot of changes. So I think Marte is probably the likely choice, even though he's listed as a second baseman. But, Varsho, if he comes up and balls out, I think you could see him out there in center field for Arizona. The Twins left fielder is currently up for grabs. Who do we think it's going to be? You have Luis Arares, an infielder utility man, Jake Cave, backup outfielder Brent Rocker, and then Alex Krylov. I think Krylov is presumed to get the job out there in left field. They didn't bring back Eddie Rosario, and Krylov still has to win the job, but I think he's the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to the opportunity there in Minnesota in left field. Who's going to be the Rockies' second baseman? Is it going to be Garrett Hampson or Brendan Rodgers? It certainly looks like Rodgers is the leader there, all things equal. The Rockies would probably prefer to keep Hampson in his utility role, but if Rodgers struggles, you could move Hampson into an everyday second base. Both young guys here, so it'll be fascinating to follow there in Colorado, especially as they get into the season. If they really struggle, do they find an everyday guy that they plan to go with? And then in Seattle, you have second base and you got left field. I mean, who's going to start at second? You got a lot of utility guys involved here. Jared Kelenic in the outfield, a rookie, going to have his shot to be in left field. Dylan Moore has his chance out there. You have Shed Long at second base, probably the favorite there. Jake Fraley in the outfield as well. So, I mean, if you had your preferred option, you'd probably go with Moore at second and Kelenic in left field. But I think it's going to be Long at second and Moore out in left field until Kelenic gets called up. Now, we know about the service time manipulation. We wonder if Seattle's going to get pressured into calling him up right away. Shed Long, he had an injury-plagued 2020, so it'll be kind of fascinating to see which direction Seattle go moving forward with a couple of position battles. We have Indians shortstop. I mean, this is due to the Francisco Lindor trade. They brought over Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez, both from the Mets. Both of them have played shortstop at the big league level. It looks like it's going to be Jimenez. Based on his past, he probably has a bit more upside. Maybe his bat isn't quite ready yet So Rosario could get the job early on and then hand it over to Jimenez. But if I'm Cleveland, I probably run Jimenez out there right from the start and ultimately see if he's ready, see if he can hit at this particular level. Who's going to be the Marlins closer? You got Anthony Bass and Yimi Garcia. It looks like Bass is going to get the job just based on his past. And, he was a closer and threw late innings for Toronto. Garcia has been fantastic. And he had a .6 ERA last year in 14 appearances. So is he going to be able to carry that over and continue that type of success? We're not sure. So I think you run out the veteran Bass and kind of transition to Garcia here as we move forward. Who's going to be the Braves closer? You got a couple of options, Chris Martin, A.J. Minter, or Will Smith. I certainly think it looks like Will Smith. We mentioned Melanson. He's now out in San Diego, so he's not there anymore. And Chris Martin, he's right-handed. I think they would want to go with a lefty closer if they could down there, use Martin in the setup role. So Will Smith, stud from the left side, I think he gets the jump here to be the Braves closer early on. You have the Yankees' fifth starter. Who's going to be the fifth guy? Michael King, Domingo German, Davia Garcia, or Julius Chasson? I don't know. It's just one of those. I think it's going to be Domingo Germain. It could be Michael King. There's a lot to follow here when it comes to the spring in the Yankees' back end of the rotation. The Diamondbacks closer, is it going to be Joakim Soria or Stefan Creton? I think Soria's probably the guy. Creton, he really doesn't have, swing and miss stuff, and that's what you really want at the back end of the game. So I think Soria looks like the front runner. He's pitched, he's closed in the past, so I think they're going to run him out until he struggles and then move on from there. Who's going to be the Reds closer? Is it going to be Amir Garrett, Lucas Sims, Sean Doolittle has done it during his time in Washington, so I think Amir Garrett pretty much is the guy there. Doolittle, a left-hander, along with Garrett. I think he's that late-inning lefty-lefty guy, which will allow Garrett to be the closer and kind of get that righty-lefty, whoever it is, ninth-inning role. The Blue Jays' designated hitter, Andrejero Kirk, Rondell Grichuk, Rowdy Tellez. They probably platoon early on. Simeon's going to be in the lineup every day. He's been mentioned, but I think Tellez ultimately wins out when it comes to those three and who ends up being the DH. And for Texas, the Rangers, you have a DH left fielder. Who's going to do what there? Willie Calhoun, David Dahl, Chris Davis for them. I think Davis may be the odd man looking out somehow. You have Dahl. He's probably going to be the guy in left field. You have Calhoun, who's probably going to be the DH. He's 26 years old, so he could be the guy who platoons with Davis, but something to watch there as a Rangers fan. Next, you have back to L.A., second base, Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor. Who's it going to be? Lux, he really underperformed last year as a rookie. Taylor's an older veteran type, so Taylor probably gets the nod early on, but if he struggles, you could move to Lux. Over the course of the regular season, he could potentially win outs. Maybe you get Lux down to AAA, get him some at-bats, but with the AAA season being delayed, I don't think that's an option for them anymore. The Rockies' first baseman, C.J. Cron, Josh Fuentes, Greg Bird. Looks like it's C.J. Cron. It's his opportunity here coming over from Detroit. He basically is the leader and looks to have that locked up, as well as the Tigers' fifth starter. Who's that going to be? Is it going to be Casey Mize right out of the gate? He has a ton of upside, former top pick in the draft. Julio Teheran, they signed to a minor league deal. Is he going to make the team, make the rotation, or is it going to be Tariq Skubal? I think it's going to be Skubal. The Tigers could go with a six-man rotation. Mize making it as well as Skubal, but I think Skubal and his development of a splitter during the offseason is going to push him over the top. The Rangers' closer, is it going to be Jonathan Hernandez or Jose Leclerc? I think you're looking at Jonathan Hernandez. Rafael Montero's out of the picture. So Hernandez, though, he's a multiple inning guy in his past. Could they be wasting his talent as the closing spot? I don't think so. I think those are important innings, and I really think that he gets the nod there. Who's going to be the catcher for the Tampa Bay Rays? Is it going to be Francisco Mejia or Mike Zunino? They brought back both of these guys. It's probably going to be a platoon between the two, depending on which pitcher's going, who's more comfortable with which catcher, ultimately the relationship there. But I think Mejia has a bit of a jump on Zunino. We saw Zunino struggle offensively in the postseason. So I think if Mejia, hits at all, he's going to be in the lineup. The Cardinals closer. Who's going to close? Jordan Hicks, Andrew Miller, Alex Reyes, Giovanni Gallegos. I think it's going to be Hicks. 100 miles an hour. He wants to be back in the closer role coming off of Tommy John. Andrew Miller from the left side has been that multi-inning guy, getting big outs for them in the past. So something to keep an eye on, which guy they use there. And then the fifth starter in St. Louis. Is it going to be Carlos Martinez or Alex Reyes? It certainly looks like Martinez is the leader there when it comes to that conversation. The last couple here, red shortstop, Kyle Former, Jose Garcia, D. Gordon, Edwino Suarez. Suarez, he's probably going to play third. Maybe he moves to shortstop. Kyle Former, Garcia, all of these guys could potentially be options in Cincinnati. And then the last one to look at here is the Tigers closer. You got Gregory Soto, Joe Jimenez, Brian Garcia, Jose Sincero, all of them coming out of the bullpen. It looks like it's going to be Garcia early on. His 1.66 ERA certainly looks to put him in the driver's seat, but Soto has electric stuff and could be a higher-end talent than Garcia and find his way into the closing role by the end of the year there. So I know that was a lot of names, a lot of positions thrown at you guys quickly here, but there's a lot going on across Major League Baseball. I mean, the Philly center field, is it going to be Hazley, Quinn, Odubel Herrera, Scott Kingery? I think it's going to start out Hazley and Kingery in a rotation, Quinn coming off the bench, Herrera, nobody knows what's going to happen with him yet, so I'm sure in your local market there's a couple of battles I didn't mention, but as you notice, there's a ton going on out there to watch over the course of the next month before opening day here hits us in early April. But that'll do it for the third segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll step aside one last time here, but when we come back, I'm going to talk to you guys about Rookie of the Year candidates. There's not gambling odds yet on these, so I want to give you guys my top option from each team to see who ultimately could be up for the award by the end of the year. So stick around, everyone. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We'll be right back after this.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome into the fourth and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Let's jump right into it here, talking about Rookie of the Year candidates when it comes to 2021. Last year's winners of the award were Kyle Lewis of the Seattle Mariners, and then the Brewers' Devin Williams coming out of nowhere with his airbender changeup, winning the award in the National League. So it's too early yet to get odds when it comes to gambling and futures bets, just due to the fact that these guys could be called up mid-season. I mean, Alec Bohm came up for half a year last year and finished second in the National League. So some names on here could be in the minor leagues to start the year. Others could have played a bit last year and still be eligible for Rookie of the Year. Like, we're going to get to a name in the American League East that you're going to say, how is he eligible? Well, he didn't play enough games in order to hit his qualification for service time to be a sophomore guy. So starting out in the American League East with the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm going Nate Pearson. He's the number 6th overall prospect starting pitcher. He had 4 starts last year before he landed on the injured list with elbow tightness, but he's electric stuff, hitting 100 miles an hour for Toronto. So he's certainly going to be a big to-do if Toronto's going to make the playoffs, and if he can stay healthy, he could be a true front-of-the-rotation guy, which puts him right up there for Rookie of the Year consideration. Next, we have the Baltimore Orioles, Ryan Mountcastle. He's the number 5 overall prospect for the Orioles. He didn't get called up till the middle of August last year, but had a fantastic year in 35 games, hitting .333 with 5 home runs. He's one of the guys I talked about saying, hey, he made his debut, but didn't play enough. You know, his 126 at-bats kept him just under the wire for consideration. And if a guy hits .333 for an entire year, he's going to be up for the award, that's for sure. The Tampa Bay Rays, it's Randy Arozarena. I mean, this guy, ALCS MVP, stud in the World Series as well. Postseason, .377, 10 home runs in 20 games. It was just fascinating to watch this guy. So he's got to be the favorite early on in the American League. But he didn't play enough during the regular season to no longer be a rookie. Everybody just knows who he is already during his success when it came to the postseason. So both Mountcastle and Arozarena have already showed that they can hit at this level. If they could keep it up, it's going to be hard to argue with them as regards to Rookie of the Year candidates. For the Boston Red Sox, I got third baseman, first baseman Bobby Dalbec. He was, ranked 6th in the minors with 59 home runs over the last 2 years, or 2018, 2019. He went deep 8 times in 8 times in 80 at-bats when it came to Major League Baseball. Former 4th-round pick. So he came up, smacked the ball all over the yard. He's going to be tough to get out this year. And then for the Yankees, I have Davivi Garcia, right-handed pitcher. I mean, he's got one of the best breaking balls in all of baseball when it comes to prospects. A lot of scouts talking about his ability. He had 6 shutout innings against the Mets during his first start in August. So he's got huge spin rates on his curveball, his fastball, his slider. He's got a changeup. If he gets into that rotation like we talked about, he's going to be somebody to deal with. Now moving over to the American League Central. We have the Indians, Nolan Jones, third baseman, number 38 overall prospect when it comes to Major League Baseball. They're completely redoing their infield there, so he could get an option at the corner. Now, I know they have Ramirez out there, but second-round kid out of high school in 2016. He's got great combinations of power and patience, a plus arm, so if they find a place for him to play every day, he's certainly going to have something to say when it comes to Rookie of the Year. For the Royals, I got left-handed pitcher Daniel Lynch. He came out of the 2018 class, as well as Brady Singer and Chris Bubeck. So Lynch is kind of the next guy, number 34 overall, 6'6" lefty, mid to upper 90s fastball, devastating slider, changeup, curveball. If he shows up early in the year here, even at the alternating site or developmental site, he could be a guy and a reason why the Royals surprise a lot of guys this year. For Detroit, I got to go Casey Mize, starting pitcher, number 5 overall prospect in Major League Baseball, former number 1 overall pick. He really struggled during his big league debut. He went 0-3 with an ERA right around 7. So I think the ability for him to kind of get up, hit around a little bit, maybe get humbled slightly. He's able to look at film, make an adjustment, and really learn what he needs to do to be successful here in 2021. So I don't think him struggling is going to be that bad of a thing. The Twins, outfielder Alex Krylov. I talked about how he's currently in a battle to be the starting left fielder. I think he has a chance that once he gets up to be really good. He struggled last year, but again, who knows? He made his MLB debut, picked up his first hit in the playoffs, so it doesn't count as a career hit, but we'll see if he's able to get things going. The White Sox second baseman Nick Madrigal. I know last year they had Luis Robert up for the award. This year I like Nick Madrigal at second base. Great bat-to-ball skills. He came out in the 2018 draft, 4th overall out of Oregon State. He hit .340 and only had a 6% strikeout rate when it came to his 30 games last year. So I think he's the guy who can make a huge next step next year in 2021. But the White Sox are loaded. I mean, they got Andrew Vaughn, who may be the DH, Michael Kopech, triple digits from the mound, Dane Dunning, left-hander Garrett Crochet. He's 100-plus on the mound, so the White Sox loaded. And again, I think that's why they're my top team coming out of the American League here. In the AL West, the Angels, Brandon Marsh, outfielder. He's number one prospect for the Angels. He's going to be protected on the 40-man roster. It's crowded in the outfield. Trout, Upton, Ward, Joe Adell, former top prospect, but has struggled out in right field. Marsh is a plus defender, and his ability to hit, if his bat comes around, he's going to push some people out of the way and really make a push to get in that everyday lineup there for the Angels. And if they get any contributions or Upton struggles near the end of his career, I think Marsh and Adell could be the future there, along with Trout for the outfield out there in L.A. For the Oakland A's, A.J. Puck. Let's see, left-handed pitcher, number 53 overall pick. He's coming off a shoulder injury. He's going to join Jesus Luzardo, who was a rookie last year, who really flashed, but he had to clean out his shoulder, go into his elbow. Everything looks like he's going to be 100% healthy. Former top pick coming out of Florida from the left side. Mid-90s fastball, quality off-speed pitch, and if he's able to put it together there in Oakland, it's going to be scary for them. Houston Astros, Forrest Whitley. It's hard. What are we expecting from Whitley? 86 regular season innings over the last 3 years. He's also had a drug suspension, oblique injuries, lat injuries, shoulder inflammation. He sat out because of a sore arm in the pandemic, but he's still hitting high 90s. He's got 5 different pitches. According to scouts, all 5 pitches grade out as plus pitches. So, if he can put it together and he can stay healthy, he's going to be tough to deal with. Seattle, you have Jared Kelenic. We talked about it in the outfield. Could he win that left fielder's job? Could they have back-to-back Rookie of the Year award winners? Are they going to manipulate his service time coming up? But everything I've seen, everything I've heard, Kelenic is going to be somebody to mess with when he gets to the show. Down in Houston, let's go with Leoto Tavares, an outfielder for them. He's got speed, great base runner, center fielder, great defense. They signed him for $2 million plus out of the Dominican Republic. So it's hard for him to live up to expectations, but I think he's going to be very good when it comes down there in Texas. If he could ever hit, it's really going to come around. Now talking about the National League, let's discuss Ian Anderson, right-hander for the Braves. He only made 6 starts, but was extremely dominant. 1.95 ERA, 11.4 strikeouts per 9. He's still eligible for Rookie of the Year. He was 2-0 in the postseason, .96 ERA. Maybe he should have won the award last year. So if he's able to put together any numbers like those, it's going to be hard to argue with him and the Rookie of the Year. The Marlins' Sixto Sanchez. He's also a guy who made his debut last year. He was traded from the Phillies in the Real Muto trade. High 90s fastball, hitting triple digits. He's got a pretty devastating changeup that works off of that. He only gave up 5 runs in his first 6 starts in the big leagues. It then looked like he ran out of gas a little bit. People started to figure him out, but if he can put it together over 162, he's going to be a ton of fun to watch. New York Mets, Thomas Suzapaki, former 5th-round overall pick, coming off of Tommy John in 2019. He didn't throw in 2020 because of the injury, no minor leagues, but he was excellent before that, before he got hurt. A 24-year-old lefty. He's made progress on a changeup. He's been healthy coming in this year, so if there's injuries to the rotation and he makes his way to the bigs, he could surprise some people. For the Nationals, I have Cade Cavalli, right-handed pitcher, 2020 first-round pick. He's going to be on the fast track to the big leagues. 4-pitch mix. He looks like a number 2 starter potentially in his future, depending on what happens with Scherzer, but put him in that 4-5 rotation behind Scherzer, Strasburg, Corbin. I think he can make some people miss. The Phillies, you're looking at Spencer Howard, another big pitching prospect, number 28 overall. He really struggled with his big league debut last year. 5.92 ERA in 24 innings, but his stuff is fantastic. Now, there are health questions. It's been a couple of years in a row where he's been shut down with shoulder injuries. But if he's 100%, he could be a long bullpen guy sent to AAA, be the number 5th starter, 6th starter. It's another decision to be had there in Philadelphia, what they're going to do with Spencer Howard. Talking about the National League Central, the Brewers, Tyrone Taylor. He's an outfielder. He's 26 years old, came off the bench last year, hit .271, former second-round pick, a great athlete, can play all three outfield positions, sneaky pop, can get one out of here every now and then, so it'll be interesting to see how he pans out there in Milwaukee. For St. Louis, you got Dylan Carlson. I mean, he had a fantastic year when across AA and AAA a couple years ago, hitting .292 with 26 home runs. He was called up to the major leagues. He was a bit overwhelmed, it looked like. He only hit .162 in 23 games, but, went back down, came up later, hit .286, and Carlson, one of the top overall prospects in Major League Baseball. I think he's going to figure things out. For the Cubs, you have Adbert Alzolay. He is a right-handed pitcher, a homegrown guy for them. Signed cheap out of Venezuela, 2.95 ERA with the Cubs last summer, 94-mile-an-hour fastball, sharp curveball. I think the Cubs kind of in a rebuild. If you're looking at a pitcher, I think he's the one who could surprise. For Pittsburgh, you have Ke'Bryan Hayes. Hayes is a third baseman for them. He could be the front runner. He got 3 votes last year. Hit .376, Gold Glove defense. He only played 24 games but had a 1.8 WAR, which was higher than any other rookie. So if Hayes can keep it up in Pittsburgh, maybe a reason to smile as a Pirates fan, and they typically don't give you a lot of them. So, keep your head up out there, Pittsburgh. I think you got a good one coming in the hot corner. For the Reds, I got Jose Garcia. Garcia at the shortstop position, maybe catcher Tyler Stevenson, but I got Garcia because I think he's going to have a quicker path to the show. If he can play defensively at the highest level and, hit even just a little bit, I think for Cincinnati, he could be a difference maker. Out in the NL West, you got Corbin Martin for the Diamondbacks. They acquired Martin from Houston for Zach Greinke back in 2019. He's coming off a Tommy John surgery, 24-year-old righty. He's got good stuff, swing and miss ability with multiple off-speed pitches. So Martin could be a long-term guy out there in Arizona. For the Dodgers, I got Josiah Gray. The Dodgers, he's a right-handed pitcher. They got a lot of young kids, not a lot of them rookie eligible, so you had to go down the list here just a little bit. But he's a strike thrower, 4 pitches, mid-90s fastball, low 80s slider. He's just got filthy stuff and could be next on the list. For the Giants, catcher Joey Bart, the number 2 overall pick, number 11 overall prospect back in 2018 out of Georgia Tech. I think he's finally going to get his chance to make his debut day in and day out behind the dish. Struggled a little bit offensively, but did a nice job with the staff. And if he hits like he's supposed to, he's going to be a guy to watch. For San Diego, I got Mackenzie Gore. McGore reached the majors in 2020, or he was supposed to, but they obviously set him down. Number 3 overall pick back in 2017, left-handed pitcher. Number 3 overall prospect in baseball. He could be a guy, if he breaks that rotation in San Diego, is really a difference maker when it comes to all the additions they made this offseason as well. And then wrapping things up with Colorado, you got Ryan Rollison, a left-handed pitcher. I mean, he's a 2018 first-rounder, hasn't been above single A, but I think the guy's going to get a shot in Colorado because things are, really going to be a struggle for them, and they're going to be looking for a spark here during the regular season. So, was there anybody I missed out there? What do you guys think? You guys know your squad's a bit better than I do. I was kind of taking a shot at some of these guys. They may not get called up till midseason, but I think a lot of them are going to be future stars here at the big league level. So, that'll do it for today's show. I appreciate you guys listening. We had a fantastic show. Unfortunately, again, we had to start off the episode by talking about Mickey Callaway and the latest on the sexual allegations taking place there. We discussed Albert Pujols, and maybe he's not 41. Maybe he's 43, 44. Who knows exactly what's going on? We then had some updates to the minor league system. AAA got pushed back a month till the month of May, but they're going to have the developmental sites as well as video being allowed back into big leagues. And then, of course, Rookie of the Year voting for you guys here wrapping up the show. So if you guys like today's episode, do me a favor, take 10 quick seconds, hit like, give us 5 stars if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, share us with your friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it, but certainly appreciate you guys listening in as always. And baseball is underway. Spring training is going at it as the clubs are starting to fill out their rosters. starting to get their everyday guys back into the lineup. We're going to have more great stuff to talk to you guys about here coming up on Monday's episode. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully the weather's getting better wherever you are. We're going to be in the 50s here in the Northeast, and it's starting to smell and look like baseball season. So I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Thanks for listening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.